Hello and welcome to this video lecture on Chapter 7. Today we'll be looking at the different processes and the supporting information systems that are used in different parts of the organization. So the questions that you should be able to answer at the end of this lecture is: how do information systems vary by scope? How do enterprises systems solve the problems of departmental silos? Then some different type of systems like CRM, ERP, EAI, how do they support the entire organization? Or these are enterprise systems, and we'll say what those acronyms stand for here in a little bit. And then how do inter-enterprise IS solve problems of the enterprise silos again? And so hopefully this will give you a better understanding of how information systems is used in an organization and how they can be used for strategic advantage and helping you do a better job. So in that first part, we talked about scope. And so scope means where it's used in an organization. And so here we might have personal scope. Example might be one person, so it's a single user typically, and their problems are just what that one person would have and sort of easy to manage. Then you have a work group. So you might have systems that are designed for that particular group. So an example might be this physicians partnership. So you might have somewhere in the range of 10 to 100 users. Typically everybody understands the procedures within the group. If you come up with different solutions within the group and you need to change things, it might be a little difficult to change because then you got to get all 10 to 100 users on board. Once you bypass that size of a group, then you're working on an enterprise level. And at an enterprise level, you might have 100 to 1,000 users. And you look at everything is very formalized. Anything that you do when you make changes affects the entire enterprise, and it becomes very difficult to change things. And now I was meeting with some people down in the IT area for Western, and they were saying that some accounts, they have 100,000 accounts that they have to manage for some software on this campus. And so they are definitely in the enterprise or inter-enterprise system. So this inter-enterprise system typically has more than 1,000 users. The procedures on how to do things is very formalized. You might have links to other organizations, and so now you've got those issues to contend with, and so any kind of changes you do there are going to be very difficult to get done because you're going to have to involve more and more people. The next question we want to answer is: how do enterprise systems solve problems of departmental silos? And what we mean by having those departmental silos is that each department has their own computing needs, and typically, if you were a small business and you're starting to grow and you then form departments, those departments would probably have their own databases and whatever they're capturing and whatever they're producing, they would keep locally to the department. So the question is okay, what happens when the departments start collecting the same data and they're keeping their own databases for that same data? So you get this problem of data duplication and data inconsistency. And so if that happens, then how do you know whose data is the most current? What happens when you change one data and it's not changed in the other department? It just becomes a nightmare in terms of using the data to make decisions with. Another area is this disjointed process. An example might be you might get credit approval in the sales and marketing department, and then the department that has to approve it is the accounting department. So the question is, here you get a request for 37.8 and it's approved for 32,300. Well, now this sales and marketing department really has to go through another process in order to get that amount, if they're going to need the whole amount or not. And having to do those sort of requests between two departments, it makes it very cumbersome because it doesn't happen fluid like. And what I mean by that is that the request comes over, it may sit on somebody's desk for a day or two, then the approval process comes back, it's not for the right amount, or they need more, and they got to go through that process over again. So that's one of the things that an enterprise system that contains all of that information could help with. Other problems that you may see is when there's a limited information in one area and a lack of integrated information. And so here we have an example of order data and payment data. And the payment data is in the accounting department, the sales and marketing have the order data. They don't know if an order's been fulfilled or not. They don't know if it was paid or not. What happens if you don't want to reissue any sales for a previous customer who hasn't paid? Well, they don't know that because the data for knowing the payment is over here in the accounting department. So again, an enterprise system would help you manage that type of information, and it would be all integrated so you would know immediately if someone paid or not. And so related problems to that would be where you have isolated decisions that lead to your inefficiency. And because you're duplicating it in multiple departments, you're going to have increased expenses. And so then you have all of the problems that you see above. When you're separating out your information systems or duplicating them and having different processes that are related in different departments. So here we have an example of information systems that they're integrated, and that helps you manage all of the processes that are going on. So the example here is you might have the physician's partnership and the hospital. If we integrate that, then we have more information on the patient. Everybody can see all that information and make better decisions with that. And as we're integrating that information, if it's from different organizations, then it becomes an enterprise type of scope. So with this example, we got the physicians group, hospital, and then the pharmacy, if you will, are all sharing information about a patient. And so you'll see what's been done in the past, what procedures and things have been done already by the doctor's group, so it doesn't have to be done in the hospital. And so having that all in an enterprise system saves lots of expenses of repeated tests. Others can see that information and make better decisions with that. So the flip side of that is, what if you didn't have an information system that contained all that information? You'd be repeating tests, you'd have to wait on results, which, if you're talking about a human life, could result in their death because you're waiting too long and don't know what to do. So here's an example of a process of how patients get discharged. And so the enterprise-wide information systems help support that process. The information system provides forms and reports and kind of notifications to the people that are involved in this process. It also controls the flow of the process activity, which is shown by the dotted line. And so a doctor that might issue the discharge order, so that's written somewhere. The nurse then sees that, it prepares the discharge. They see if they have any pharmacy, any drugs to take home, any meds. The kitchen has to be notified that the patient is leaving, so they won't prepare any more food for that. Housekeeping has to be notified so they can come in and clean the room and get it ready for the next patient. And then the family has to be notified so they can do the pickup. So once they come to the pickup, they then come back to the pharmacy, get any medicines that they need to take home, and then they finally get the patient. All along the way, there's information, forms and reports, and notifications that have to be done, and that system helps do that. If you did do that, just think how slow this entire process would be and how inefficient it would be. And so that's what an information system can do for an organization. So when we look at these processes, sometimes because of new technology or just using an information system, we can look at business process reengineering. That is, how do we become more efficient with our processes? We don't want to keep doing things the same old way. Is there a better way to do it? And so periodically you need to ask yourself, why are we doing things this way? Is there an easier way, a more efficient way? Is the data already out there? Can we use it from somewhere else? And so on. So what you're looking at is, when you're looking at improving these processes, does that mean that the structure of the processes change? Maybe there's different resources, or you need to change both in terms of being more efficient or more effective. So with the business process reengineering, you get integrated data. Data come from different locations, and that hopefully that will keep or help the enterprise system create a stronger, faster, and more effective linkages in that value chain. So that would be similar to the hospital that we just showed you on a previous slide. Now, because everything's integrated, it can be difficult to make changes, and it can be very expensive because now you're not dealing with just one area, you're dealing with a whole bunch of different areas. And so think about, if you wanted to replace that system, you need a system that was designed to fit into all those different areas. And if it didn't, you'd need to modify it somehow. And so what kind of people would you need in order to look at that system and to redesign it if you wanted to do some kind of different re-engineering to the process? So not only would you need IT folks, but you need the folks that are actually using the system and get input from them. And so that again can add to the expense and time of doing any kind of process re-engineering. The next thing we want to talk about is special types of enterprise systems, and these are CRM, ERP, and EAI. And you see them listed below here. So CRM is customer relationship management, and the enterprise resource planning, and the enterprise application integration. These are all major systems, and they can usually be bought, or you get a license for them. So they're there, the license might be good for a year, and then every year you have to pay for that. Or you can buy them straight out, then you own them forever, but you don't have access to the upgrades. Typically, you're going to get a license, and when you buy these systems, they're going to have pre-built procedures in them already. And what that means is that most companies are going to use CRM for the same thing, and so they're pre-designed procedures for using these different products. And so people know how that happens in a business, and so you can buy a CRM, and it's good for all different types of organizations. You may have to modify it slightly. And so the nice thing about buying pre-built software that is designed on these procedures that most organizations use and do the same thing is you're going to get best practices for the industry that are integrated into this software. So CRM, a lot of salespeople might use that. ERP, a lot of manufacturing people might use that, and then everybody would make use of the application integration. And we'll say a little bit more about each of these. So with CRM, or customer relationship management software, it's usually a suite of applications that is integrated. You have a common database and then a set of processes that this suite of applications steps their users through, or has their users go in that way. And what I mean by procedures is okay, what kind of questions do you need to ask your customers? What kind of follow-up do you need? What kind of integration to other applications is there? And so on. And so this CRM then manages all the interactions with the customer through their different phases of their customer life cycle. So what happens when we send out marketing material and we get responses back, we track them, we then need to put that customer's information into our database. We have the customer acquisition. What kind of information do we then want to do for our relationship management? Do we want to offer them special discounts? We know that if we offer them certain discounts that they're more likely to buy, and so on. Then we also have, if they're not buying things, we're losing that customer, and we've got to go out and find new customers, so that loss and churn. And so by using a CRM type of tool, a piece of software, it's going to support the customer. So it's very customer centric. And so to me, probably a nice type of CRM is when it has your information, you call, it might recognize your phone number, and then someone confirms that it's actually you who's calling, and so they know that immediately. Then if they need to transfer you to, say, technical support, all your information and what information has been gathered so far also goes to that next application, and somebody can see that and not have to start over and ask you who are they talking with and what's the problem. And so that's all part of integrating that customer relationship management. So here we have a visual of what I was talking about, starting with this marketing, the customer acquisition, the relationship management, and then any kind of loss or churn that's going on. And so the only thing that's probably a little different here is this: when we have loss and churn, we're actually going to try and win back those customers, and then you see that right here. And so that relationship management process will help us do that, and that's what it's designed to do. And this graph, or this slide, shows us how all those different applications are integrated into one database. So the database is holding all the data, and then the different applications will then use that. So, our initial solicitation management applications, any kind of sales we have, any kind of relationship management, any kind of customer support. So all of that information is there. It can be shared with any other application and the people that are using those in order to keep that customer, or if that customer decides to leave or go elsewhere, to help win them back. Maybe they need extra discount on some kind of sale, or another feature on the product that you're selling, those sort of things. If you know that and then the feature comes out, you would then know that information, be able to contact that customer and let them know, and see if you could generate another sale or not. So the next enterprise type system we want to talk about is this ERP application, Enterprise Resource Planning. Is a bunch of different applications or modules that are linked to a database. And again, you would buy an ERP system that's based on industry standards, best practices. This is what everybody in the industry has. You might need to modify that software slightly in order to use in your organization, but here are some of the different applications that are part of that ERP system. So we've got HR, got inventory, manufacturing, accounting, customer support, relationship management applications, sales, and solicitation. So again, they're all integrated. They are inherent processes for doing all these things, and the company can buy this software, set it up in there, then they're good to go instead of having to develop each one of these separately and write it from scratch. So to list all that out again, it's a suite of applications. They consolidate all the business operations into a single platform. It includes CRM plus some accounting, manufacturing, inventory, and HR. And so a company that you might buy this from is SAP. And so SAP has developed these ERP systems for companies to buy. And they maybe cost hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars to buy these systems, and then they send their people in to help you customize it. And it may take 6 months to 2 years to implement an entire system. And these are for big companies. But instead of having to write these from scratch and take all that time, they're all integrated. That is, they can share information across applications, which sometimes you don't get if people are developing these applications for their own departments. And so then you lose that continuity. And so it makes sense to buy an ERP system if you're that large and need to manage all those different things and share information. The last enterprise system I want to talk about is this EAI. And EAI, the Enterprise Application Integration, to me is, if you think about it, more like middleware. And so it connects different systems so they can share information, so they'd be able to communicate with each other. That is, you have systems that weren't designed to share information. The column names of one application is different than a column name in another application, yet the data is the same. You have to have some way of telling each system how they're the same, and you can share the information. So it provides integrated information, and so it's something that connects two systems. And so here you see they think about it as an integrated layer on top of those existing systems. And so if you have something like that and you need to be able to talk to each other, then this might be a cheaper way to go, and then you would gradually move on to an ERP system. So graphically, it might look like the following. So you have something coming in, you have these different systems, and then the EAI server sits on top. And so it talks to each of them and allows the information to go back and forth, and then it shares that information that it knows about the data on the data, if you will. And so it's a little more complex, but cheaper than buying an ERP system. So I'm going to pause there. When we come back, we'll finish the rest of the chapter.